Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow orders to the letter to spite someone. And in today's episode, it's all about entitled bosses getting taught lessons they won't forget. Your favorite. And one OP shares a story where their Karen boss tried to teach him a lesson and it backfires so hard. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened only a month ago, so the memory of the incident is fresh. I got accepted into college, and I had to quit my job of 2 years. I put up my resignation papers, and I had 2 months of my notice period left. I had informed my manager and the team, but I didn't account for Mr. S, who is technically on my team, but he worked from the client offices overseas, so I don't get to see him ever. Here's a little background on Mr. S. The guy was hired as a mediator between the client and us, but the guys had years of technical experience, so he often helped us out with the technical work, but he was always a snob about it. He made sure to CC every possible manager in every email to show that he was doing a lot more than his role was required to do. The guy acted like everyone's boss, and everyone hated how commanding and rude he was. Most meetings with him were just the entire team listening to him bitch and moan for 20 minutes. He also had no boundaries, and he would call up at odd hours of the night just to prove his point. He would promise clients certain results with unreasonable timelines without consulting the team, leading to late delivery and terrible client ratings. So that said, since I had 2 months left to go at work, I wasn't quick to give up responsibilities and transfer knowledge to my colleagues. I handled an important client-facing task that I've been doing for 2 years I worked there. I never taught it to anyone else because it's a relatively easy task, and it hasn't been screwed up in 2 years. Though we get the info from the client that my task was undergoing major upgrades, and it needs to be done extra carefully and on priority for the next week. I know the drill, so I get to work as usual. That's when Mr. S calls me up on video chat to re-emphasize the importance of the task this week. I just reply to him that I've been following all protocols every week, and I'll continue the same as usual, being careful of the upgrades. Well, he loses it. The guy considers my answer as unprofessional and inconsiderate, and he proceeds to tell me how I'm not that important to the team and my job was easily replaceable. He then cut the call, and he proceeds to reassign all my tasks for the next 2 months to someone else, while also formally emailing everyone that no new tasks were to be assigned to me. So there I sat, maliciously complying, watching my teammates struggle to run my task, unable to help. I sat around doing nothing for the last 2 months of my job. Luckily, I was working from home, so that meant 2 months of paid leave. I did a lot of gardening. Yeah, if I were OP, I'd be sending Mr. S a nice thank you message for the 2 months of paid time off. Like, how did you know I'm starting college this fall and I put in 2 months notice to our boss? Thank you very much for paid time off as a present. It also would have been worth it to remind him how he thought OP wasn't that important to the team and how their job was easily replaceable. Like, I just love it when people get told that by their superiors and it ends up backfiring so hard. So I recently resigned from a toxic workplace as a data analyst at a startup. It was promising at the start, but not long after, I noticed many red flags, including the fact that my manager had absolutely no data analysis or management experience prior to being promoted. Like, how can you manage analysts without knowing basic Excel functions? I ignored these red flags and trusted her leadership because I liked the company's goals. Little did I know, this would be the worst decision ever. I basically did all the work for the team the whole year I was there. When I ran the numbers for reporting and analysis of team performance, she always asked me to dumb it down so she could present it to high-level management. I thought everything was going well because I only got good feedback from her and the rest of the team. That said, about a month ago, my coworker, who I don't get along with, made a complaint about me, which was absolutely untrue. The manager believed it without investigating, and all of a sudden, I was placed on a PIP, Performance Improvement Plan. And for all who don't know, a performance improvement plan is used by managers to address underperformance and start a documentation process. This is usually used as a first step to fire someone or to phase them out. My boss then spouted all types of lies to HR, and when I refuted those claims with written evidence, she doubles down and she starts gaslighting me, saying, "You're just too negative." I refused to sign, and then I was threatened with termination, so I complied and I start building a case against them. I knew she was doing the PIP to terminate me, as she looked for internal candidates to replace me in secret, because she was dumb enough to set the meeting up beside me. Once I signed the contract for a new job, I basically did nothing, and I started working from home. Before my resignation, she asked me to do some reporting for her, so I ran the numbers and I sent her the raw data. I told her where the files were located and that she can analyze the data and make the presentation herself. I told her that since she's the data analyst manager, she should know how to do it. She then tried reporting me for that, but it ultimately backfired because they asked her if the work that I did was actually wrong, and she was forced to admit that she had no idea what she was looking at. When she said that, everything else in the team was questioned, and I believe they're now being audited by an external investigator. Credibility is destroyed. She ends up getting let go not too long after I left. I'm now working for a manager who's competent and has clear goals for the team. But that was one hell of a ride. It's a small win against toxic management, but a win is a win. Oh boy, who else would have loved to have been in that room when that Karen boss was forced to admit she had no idea what she was doing as the boss? And seriously, you'd think that as a boss, if you know that one of your employees was keeping you in that position, you would treat them like the golden employee. But no, let's throw them under the bus and destroy my own career. That's better. So this happened back in maybe 2006 to 2008-ish. I was a tax associate at the most well-known tax service in North America. I did very well in the class you take, which determines your eligibility to be hired. I was bounced from office to office as newbies do, and I was doing well enough that I was always the first to be called if a shift needed to be covered. After my first season with them went so well, I was invited back the next year, and the class was free because of the invitation back. And in case you're wondering why the class is every year, it's because tax rules change every year, and we have to keep up. Shortly after the class was over, which I aced, I was approached by the lady who ran the district. We'll call her Karen. She wanted to open a seasonal office in a Walmart, about 50 kilometers outside the city I worked in. She wanted me as the primary associate there, in part that I'd done so well the previous year, and in part that I'd aced the class. Also, because of my background in security, and that I lived closer to this Walmart than anyone else on staff. Now, I wasn't to be a manager, but I was to be the only full-time associate. I would open and close almost every day, and I would often be the only associate on site. It was basically my baby to take care of. There were hints that it might lead to advancement in the company as well, so I was pretty excited at this opportunity. At first, everything was great. The Walmart staff liked me, the customers liked me, my boss liked me. I was blasting through customers. Only maybe 5 people walked away due to having to wait, out of a few hundred who approached my little office beside the produce section. Well, 2 months in, right before the tax season really heated up, I had a weekend booked off, the same day they'd hired me. I was going out of town to see family. The trip had been set long before they hired me, and I made it quite clear that I wasn't going to be around. The schedule accurately reflected that. So the weekend arrives, and I go. I had a good time, and I came back Monday evening so I could be back Tuesday morning. When I got home and checked my answering machine for messages, there were 3 messages. 2 from my boss, Karen, and 1 from the scheduler. Now, I don't remember everything word for word, so I'll paraphrase. Message number 1, that was sent at approximately 7 a.m. in the morning, said, "Hi, so I'm sorry to do this to you, but we need you in today. The employee who we scheduled to replace you, his car broke down." Message number 2, which was Saturday afternoon at approximately 2 p.m. said, "Hey, I'm very disappointed in you for not responding to me and not showing up. I hope you're not ignoring me because you don't want to work. I'll be making some changes." Message number 3, Monday morning, approximately 9 a.m. "Hi OP, this is scheduler. Your hours have changed this week, so call me when you get this." Now, at this point in my life, I'm not a kid out of high school, and I've had enough experience with screw jobs that I'm absolutely not gonna crawl on my hands and knees apologizing and begging for my job. If you're gonna be petty and mean just because you messed up, then we're going to have problems. So we did. I called the scheduler, and I was told I was suspended for a week, and to call my boss Karen after a week to get back on the schedule. She said the boss was trying to put me in my place and to teach me a lesson on how to be a good manager, whatever that means. She said that I would get back on the schedule after the week was over, and she thought I'd learned my lesson. I then brought up my pre-planned and scheduled time off, and also that I wasn't a manager, I was a regular employee. The scheduler was very uncomfortable, but she was only doing what she was told. "They need me," she said, "so just call the boss in a week." I told her, sure, and then I didn't. I was furious, and I wasn't the one who was going to be put in her place. I called a few customers I'd been working with, and I explained I was no longer working there, and they chose to keep me as their tax gal regardless. The malicious compliance was accepting my suspension. The entire week I was suspended, I made sure to stop at the Walmart to see if I knew who they scheduled for my shift. And if they were friendly, I would help them out with the quirks of this location. But there was never anyone there. I confirmed with the Walmart staff that all week they had no one working there. They were paying Walmart to rent the space, and they were getting nothing but a bad reputation for it, because the heavily advertised new location had 0 employees. It remained that way for the rest of the season, which was 2 months. The boss never called me, and I never called her. Pride. And I have no idea how it impacted her professionally. I stay far away from taxes ever since. I got another job before my suspension was over, and I never looked back. Okay, in my opinion, I think that Karen boss needs to learn how to be a boss herself, because suspending OP and punishing them because someone else's car broke down when OP was approved on vacation is ridiculous. Like, this is the definition of F around and find out. And what a weird power trip that was. And OP pops into the comments to say, "I like to dream that even if she didn't get in trouble, she still lost possibly as much as millions for the company overall. The rented space, the marketing, the phone lines, the internet access, the customers who either did it themselves or went to a competitor, on top of at least a few being turned against using them for the service just because their office wasn't staffed. People are extra dramatic at tax time." Several years ago, I worked for an aerospace manufacturing company as a setup operator. This meant my job was to arrive before the shift start, usually 3 or 4 hours early, to make sure all 5 access mills were calibrated, the automatic tool changer magazines were all loaded correctly, and the tooling was in good condition, nothing dulled or broken. If there was damaged tooling, a part of the process was removing the carrier, replacing the cutter, and resetting the cutter height with a gauge, making it so the tip of every cutter is in the exact same position for that particular holder every time. After being there for several years, the company eventually gets acquired and new management comes in. I'm there from 3 or 4 in the morning until around 1 or 2 p.m. Sometimes earlier if a new job gets added to the floor. The schedule works fine for me. I get to beat traffic both ways, and the pay's a bit higher due to the differential. After a few weeks, it gets noticed that I constantly leave early, and I always run over on hours, so they implement a new policy. The work starts at 9 a.m. and it runs to 5. You have to be on the floor ready to go when the clock hits 9 o'clock. I try to explain to my new boss exactly why I leave early, but the guy's more concerned about numbers and cash flow than what I actually do there. So I thought, fine, if you want 9 to 5, I'll work 9 to 5. Instead of punching in at 4, I chill in my car until around 8:45 and then roll into the building. I wait until exactly 9 o'clock and then punch and head to the floor. I roll up to the first guy on the line and I hit the emergency stop, which shuts the machine down instantly. I then tell the operator this hasn't been set up yet and they need to wait till it's ready. I then head down the line and I punch everyone I pass, telling them the same thing. Not ready, go wait. I then go back to the start of the line with my equipment and gauges, and then start calibrating the entire magazine, verifying that everything in there is in spec and ready to be used. I made sure that everything on the first unit was in order, and it took about 40 minutes since I took my time. Meanwhile, the rest of the line is dead in the water. No one can do any work until their deck passes calibration and is certified to use. I'm partway through the second unit when I have my new manager breathing down my neck. He's screaming at me asking, why is nothing running, what's going on, etc, etc. That's when I calmly explained to him that this is my job. The one that until today, I used to come in hours early to do, as to not mess with the production schedule. I need to get this done, and should be ready to start the line in another 5 or 6 hours, boss. I'm then told to unlock and get the line moving, which no can do because none of these machines are checked, and I'm not signing off on the certification until I'm done. Anything not certified is an instant QC reject. That's when I let my boss choose to run the line and let quality control reject $1 million in parts, or let me finish and lose $1 million in production time, and I go back to my old schedule tomorrow. In the end, the plant got a day paid to do nothing, and I got the new boss off my back, and the guy got reamed all to hell for losing a day's production. So yeah, the moral of the story is, if you're a new manager, always question why the team does things the way they do. Don't just come in and start making changes because you might regret it. And this person shares a piece of advice. This person says, my mentor taught me, when you take over managing a small team, don't change anything for at least a month. When you take over managing a large team, don't change anything for 3 months. If you're taking over a department or a group with multiple teams that interact with each other, don't change anything for 6 months. That rule of thumb has worked well for me for a couple of decades. 13 years ago, when I worked for the UK government, I lived on the south coast of the UK, and I worked in London. So I had a long commute of about 90 minutes on the train each way. I had a motorbike accident which severely injured my left leg and hip. So I asked HR department and my boss to allow me to come in earlier and finish earlier to avoid rush hour, so I wouldn't have to suffer the pain of standing on a packed train all the way to work and back. They both agreed. Now, our office had a flexi-time workday of 8 hours, 7 hours plus a 1-hour lunch break, between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m., and how you choose to do that was up to you. However, business needs often dictated that some people need to stay later or whatever, so my agreement with HR would allow me to circumvent that, and just stick to my new agreed-upon hours of 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Of course, due to the train times, I would get into the office about 30 to 40 minutes before I was due to start, and I would leave 30 minutes after my agreed-upon finish time. And I always put in an extra hour of work a day due to that. And I also often skipped my lunch break and just worked through it if I needed to. There followed a blissful year of me managing my time perfectly and getting into the office without being in pain. When my new manager came into our office though, he pulls me aside after a few weeks, and he said, "There's a perception in the office that you leave early." Of course, he wasn't privy to the agreed upon change in my time, and he didn't like the fact that I got in early and I left early, when he usually had to stay until 5 p.m. at the earliest and 8 p.m. the latest. So with that, the guy changes my work hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day, meaning I had to stand on the train to and from work. Also meaning that by the time I got to the office in the morning, I was in extreme pain. The guy still expected me to start work early and finish late though, like I had been. He then told me that this had been agreed with HR. And since it's been over a year since my accident, I was expected to have made a full recovery. But here's the thing, I hadn't though, and in fact, I still suffer from a weakened leg to this day. However, my new contract hadn't removed the clause that allowed me to only work 8 hours without any expected overtime. So I would get to the office at about 8:15 to 8:20 each day, and I would sit reading the newspaper or sometimes literally doing nothing, which infuriated my boss even more. I would then clock in at exactly 9 a.m. and then clock out exactly at 5 p.m., no matter what I was doing. I would also take exactly 1 hour for lunch each day, regardless if whether or not I was doing anything. The guy tried to arrange meetings for before, after, and during those times, and I would decline them or leave during a meeting if it overran, and there was nothing he could do about it. When he complained to me, asking if I was doing this on purpose to spite him, I pointed out that it was in the contract that he signed off with HR. Sadly, he made my life more difficult in other ways, and the pain in my leg got worse due to having to stand to and from work. So this crappy situation only lasted a few months before I quit. Still, those few months got him very angry, so it was worth it. Also, for those asking, I did get a settlement, and not too long after I quit, I heard from a colleague that my former boss got a sideways promotion that took away all of his managerial responsibilities. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/pro revenge episode, where psycho Karens are getting taught lessons they won't forget. Guys, go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.